The kora had been silent for years. Its gourd body, once bright with polished sheen, now dulled to the color of dust. Strings that once trembled with the voice of griots hung slack, broken or missing entirely. It rested in the corner of Mariama's family home in St. Louis, Senegal, its presence overlooked by most, just another relic of a bygone age when her grandfather filled courtyards with song. To Mariama, though, the kora was not dead. It was alive in the way an old heart still beats beneath tired ribs. She had discovered the hollow one humid afternoon. While cleaning, her fingers brushed against a seam near the base of the calabash body. The thin wood shifted, revealing a cavity between layers of hide and gourd. Her pulse had quickened as if she'd unearthed a secret treasure. That day she slipped inside her first folded note, a confession she dared not voice. "I miss you when you leave the ferry landing. I count the hours until I see you again." She had pressed the paper deep into the hollow, her chest burning with the thrill of risk. The notes were for Amadou. He was 18 just as she was, tall with lean strength from working along the river. His skin was dark bronze from the sun, his smile a quick flash that unsettled her insides. They had grown up trading small jests, tossing pebbles into the Senegal River, daring each other to run barefoot across hot sand. But the easy childhood banter had dissolved into something heavier, a pull that frightened and thrilled her. With the kora she found her courage. Her words became music on paper, strings plucked in silence. When his reply came, tucked beneath a bundle of dried fish at the market stall, her world shifted. His handwriting was steady but slanted, each letter shaped with care. "You are the song I hear even when no one plays. When you walk past the ferry the air bends. I cannot explain it." He signed with 2 slashes like parallel strings, their secret code. That night, Mariama placed his note into the kora's hollow, resting her palm on its skin. She could almost feel its body hum. To everyone else it was a husk. To her it was alive with rhythm. Market days were whirlwinds of color. Women in vibrant wax prints balanced baskets of rice, peppers, and cloth on their heads. The air thickened with smoke from roasted peanuts, the tang of dried fish, and the sweet promise of bissap drinks. At the edge of it all, the ferry groaned, ropes taut, as men hauled goods and travelers across the river. Mariama always lingered there, pretending to wait for fabric buyers, but her eyes searched for Amadou. He worked with his uncle at the ferry, hauling crates, tightening knots, guiding goats down the ramp with calm efficiency. His hands were rope-burned, nails rimmed with work, but to Mariama, they were the most graceful hands she had ever seen. When their eyes met across the crowd, she felt her breath catch. A basket nearly toppled from her head once, and she swore it was because of the force of his gaze. Their ritual was careful, practiced. She would pause by the stall selling gourds, her fingers brushing one absent-mindedly. Moments later, Amadou would pass by, sliding something small under a folded cloth. To anyone watching, it was nothing but a busy day's transaction. To them it was a handoff, a lifeline. She would carry the slip of paper home like a spark hidden in tinder. That evening, in the soft glow of an oil lamp, Mariama unfolded his note. "I heard the griots sing yesterday by the mosque. I imagined us there, you listening, me playing. Do you think I could learn? Do you think you would still look at me if I sang?" The words made her cheeks warm, her heart thrumming like plucked strings. She wrote back, biting her lip as she dared to answer. "I would look at you always. Even if the river dried, I would still hear you." She slipped the note into the kora's hollow, her fingers trembling. The instrument seemed to guard them, its silence thick but benevolent. Sometimes she pressed her forehead against it, whispering thanks. She had never touched Amadou beyond brief accidental brushes, a shoulder against hers at the ferry, his hand steadying her when she stumbled. Yet each note felt like a caress, each word more intimate than skin. But their rhythm faltered the day Mamadou arrived at her family's compound. He was 19, the son of a wealthy fisherman, tall and broad with polished sandals and a bubu of indigo cloth. His eyes were calm, his smile measured. He came with his uncles, men who spoke in tones of certainty, their words heavy as nets full of catch. They carried gifts, baskets of dried fish, bolts of cloth, even a promise of a new canoe for the village. Mariama's father listened intently, his weathered face thoughtful. "A man who feeds many mouths is worth more than one who plays strings," one uncle said. The words struck Mariama like cold water. She served them tea with trembling hands, her wrapper damp with nervous sweat. Mamadou's gaze lingered politely, never invasive, but it was empty of the fire she knew in Amadou's eyes. Her mother watched silently, her expression unreadable. Mariama's pulse pounded as she imagined the kora's hollow, her secrets hidden there, her longing for another boy. That night, she wrote with furious desperation. They came today. They spoke of boats and dowries. My father listened. Mamadou is steady, but steady feels like silence. Amadou, what do we do when the tide pulls us apart? She pressed the words deep into the kora, her tears staining the edge. Outside, the wind rose, rustling through palms, carrying with it the heavy scent of rain. It felt like a warning. The small music shop near the ferry was a place most villagers overlooked. Its shelves held dusty balafons, gems with cracked skins, and koras with frayed strings. Instruments no one bought anymore, relics of griots who had passed. For Mariama and Amadou, though, the shop became their sanctuary. The owner, an old man with milky eyes, hardly noticed customers, and so it was here that they carried out their most daring ritual. Mariama would slip into the shop under the guise of fetching cloth dye for her mother. Amadou, passing by with ropes slung over his shoulders, would step inside and linger near the instruments. They would not speak more than a greeting. Instead, a folded slip of paper would exchange hands in the most ordinary gesture. Mariama pretending to inspect a kora string, Amadou placing his calloused fingers over hers, leaving the letter beneath her palm. That day the touch lingered longer than usual. His skin was rough, warm, and her breath caught in her throat. She lowered her lashes to hide the flush rising on her cheeks, but the old kora beside them seemed to hum with the pulse between their hands. They parted quickly, but Mariama's body tingled as she hurried home, clutching the letter against her chest beneath her wrapper. Later that night, beneath the soft orange glow of her oil lamp, she read his words. I see them watching you, Mariama. Their eyes measure you like grain in a basket. I want to tell them you are more than dowry, more than cloth and fish. You are music itself. If I could, I would pluck a string and let the whole river know my love for you. Her heart throbbed. She lay back on her mat, closing her eyes, imagining his voice close to her ear, his lips grazing her temple. Desire filled her, heavy and sweet, and she whispered to the kora, keep this for me until the day he can say it aloud. Mamadou's presence grew heavier in the following weeks. He was not unkind. He greeted Mariama with respect whenever they crossed paths, his tone polite, his gaze steady. But with every interaction she felt the weight of his offer pressing closer. He had already gifted the village 2 new fishing nets, each wide and strong enough to feed dozens of families. His father spoke openly at the mosque about expanding the fleet, offering jobs to boys who would otherwise idle at the riverbanks. People nodded approvingly. In their eyes, Mamadou was not only a suitor, he was a future. At the evening meal, Mariama listened as her father spoke of Mamadou's reliability. He does not speak much, but his actions are steady. A boat does not need to sing, only to float and carry its load. Her mother said little, her almond-shaped eyes darting once toward her daughter, searching for something she did not voice. Mariama kept her head bent, her food tasteless in her mouth. That night, unable to contain herself, she slipped from the compound under the pretense of fetching water. She hurried to the music shop, where she knew Amadou sometimes lingered after his work. He was there, seated on a low stool, sweat still dampening his shirt, the air around him filled with the faint tang of salt and rope. When he saw her, his eyes lit, then darkened with worry. You shouldn't be here, he whispered, though his body leaned toward her. Mariama's chest tightened. They are speaking of him as if I have no say, she confessed. Her voice trembled, but her gaze held his. Amadou, I don't want nets or boats. I want... Her words faltered, but the silence between them completed the sentence. His hand brushed hers in the dim light of the shop, his thumb grazing her knuckles. Heat flooded her, stealing her breath. For a heartbeat, she thought he might lean closer, press his lips to hers. Instead, he closed his fist, pulling back with a shuddering breath. Then we must fight harder, he said. His restraint only deepened the ache inside her. She left that night with her body trembling, her pulse singing louder than any kora. By the time the harmattan winds began to sweep dust across the town, whispers had spread among the elders. Mariama overheard them after prayers, their voices low but certain. Mamadou offers boats. His family will secure jobs. What does the boy with rope and sweat bring? Another asked. Their laughter was quiet but sharp, cutting her like reeds at the river's edge. At home, she found her mother alone in the courtyard, folding laundry. Gathering courage, Mariama blurted, Do you think love can fill a house, Mama? Her mother paused, hands stilling on the cloth. Love is a song, Mariama. But even the sweetest song cannot cook rice. That is the truth of our world. She looked at her daughter with softness, though her words weighed like stones. But songs can give strength in ways rice cannot. That too is truth. The double meaning twisted in Mariama's heart. That evening she wrote feverishly. They say you have nothing compared to Mamadou. But Amadou, you have given me more than nets and canoes. You have given me breath. When I think of you, my body feels alive. If they force me to marry him, it will be like silencing the kora forever. She pressed the note deep into the instrument's hollow, her fingers trembling. Later, she dreamed of Amadou, not at the ferry, not in the market, but beside her, their bodies close, his breath mingling with hers. She woke with heat on her cheeks and a longing that refused to fade. The kora stood silent in the corner, but she could swear its hollow echoed with her own desire. The air thickened with unease. The harmattan winds, once a whisper, grew restless, carrying fine dust that settled into corners of homes and clung to skin. Fishermen squinted at the horizon, muttering about waves that looked too high for the season. The elders' voices grew sharper too, echoing through the mosque courtyard after prayers. Mariama often lingered nearby, pretending to collect water, her ears straining. A girl does not need a boy's promises, one said. She needs a man's boat, a man's nets. That is how families survive. Another nodded gravely. Mamadou's gifts are real. This other one, what has he given? Their words were knives cloaked in wisdom. At home, Mariama's father grew more insistent. Your life will not be lived on scraps of paper, Mariama, he warned, his tone stern. It will be lived on food, cloth, dowry, children. Mamadou can give this. Why risk hunger? His words fell heavy, but Mariama's heart resisted, her body rejecting the idea of another man's touch, another man's house. When she tried to speak, her throat closed, her tongue heavy with unshed truths. That night, she turned to the kora again. The hollow received her words like a friend who would never betray her. They say you have nothing. But your words are everything, Amadou. I imagine your hand against mine, your lips against my cheek, and I know wealth cannot measure this. The river sings of you. I cannot silence it. She pressed the paper inside, resting her forehead against the gourd's curve. For a moment, she thought she felt it vibrate faintly, as if the old strings remembered what it was to be alive. The air grew still afterward. Too still. Children stopped their games early, dogs whined at shadows, and the elders grew restless. Everyone felt it, the quiet before the storm. It began with a sky the color of copper, burning with unnatural fire. Then came the wind, fierce, violent, tearing palm fronds from their stalks and hurling dust into every crevice. The sea roared louder than drums, waves crashing against the shore as if trying to swallow the town whole. Rain followed, sheets of it, slanting sideways, soaking everything in minutes. Mariama clutched the kora in her arms, wrapping her wrapper around it to shield its fragile body. The wind whipped at her braids, stinging her cheeks with grit. Thunder cracked overhead, and for a terrifying heartbeat, she thought the roof might tear away. Then, through the downpour, a figure burst into the courtyard. Amadou, drenched, his cotton shirt plastered to his lean body, his jaw clenched with urgency. Mariama, he shouted, his voice nearly lost in the howl. He reached her, his hands covering hers over the kora. For a moment, their eyes locked, rain coursing down their faces, breaths mingling hot against the cold storm. Desire surged, raw, electric. Their fingers tightened together, holding the instrument as if it were their child, their future. They crouched side by side, shielding the kora against the storm's fury. Mariama's heart pounded so hard she thought it might crack her ribs. She could feel his warmth despite the water, his body trembling not from cold but from proximity. In that suspended instant, the storm outside became a reflection of the storm within, wild, unrestrained, impossible to deny. But the water found them. A violent surge crashed through the courtyard, sweeping across the ground. Mariama gasped as the kora slipped from her grip. Amadou lunged, catching it, but several papers spilled from its hollow, scattering like pale birds into the flood. No, she cried, reaching helplessly. Neighbors rushed in, shouting, their eyes catching the soggy scraps of ink. Words blurred but still legible. Secrets exposed. The storm had ripped away their cover. Love, once hidden in the kora's hollow, now lay bare in the mud for all to see. By morning the storm had weakened, leaving behind destruction. Nets shredded, boats broken, grain washed into gullies. But what Mariama feared most was not the wreckage of wood or rope. It was the wreckage of her heart laid open. The courtyard was full. Neighbors stood with damp papers in their hands, faces creased with shock, disapproval, curiosity. Elders frowned, their brows furrowed. Love letters, one muttered, his voice like flint. Hidden in the kora, of all places. Another shook his head. A girl's folly. A boy's weakness. Mariama's father sat on a low stool, the bundle of ruined papers heavy in his lap. His silence cut deeper than any scolding. Beside her, Amadou stood, water still dripping from his hair, his jaw set with quiet defiance. He reached for her hand, openly now in full sight of the village. Gasps rose. Mariama felt his grip steady, firm as though to say, "We will face this storm together." Her body trembled, not from fear, but from the intimacy of that simple gesture, their palms pressed in public, their fingers entwined in rebellion. Her father finally spoke, his voice rough. "You have shamed us. You have turned music into secrecy, turned a sacred vessel into a hiding place for childish desire." His words hit hard, but Mariama's spine straightened. Before she could speak, Amadou stepped forward. His voice carried over the crowd, strong and steady. "Yes, I wrote them," he declared. "I will not deny it. I love her. I may not have Mamadou's boats, but I have my hands, my work, my strength. I have saved coin by coin. And I will stand before you all and prove I can build a life worthy of her." His words crackled with conviction, his dark eyes ablaze. The villagers murmured, some disapproving, some struck silent. Mariama's father looked at him long, his silence heavy as judgment. The kora lay at their feet, empty now, its strings still broken. Yet Mariama knew it had done its work. It had carried their love into the light, however painful the exposure. The morning after the storm, the kora was gone. Mariama's heart lurched when she saw the empty corner of the room where it had always rested. She searched frantically, under mats, behind baskets, even in the small storage hut, but found nothing. Her father's silence at breakfast gave her the answer. He had taken it. Later, she saw him carrying the kora into the storeroom, its silent body pressed under his arm like evidence of a crime. He did not meet her eyes. When she tried to speak, he raised a hand, cutting her words short. "This is no longer your toy," he said, his voice gravelly. "You have used it for foolishness. Secrets hidden in a sacred vessel. Shame hidden in a song that was never meant to be silent. Until you learn what steadies a family, you will not touch it again." The words burned. Mariama bit her lip until she tasted blood, her eyes blurring. The kora was not just wood and string. It was her chest, her heartbeat, her confession carved into soundless air. Without it, she felt severed, hollow. That night, she heard Amadou at the compound gate calling softly, "Mariama." His voice carried through the dark, tender and desperate. She rose, but her father's footsteps were already moving, barring the gate. "Go home," he told the boy. "You will not bring more shame here." Amadou's voice broke with protest, but Mariama heard him turn away, his footsteps fading into the night. She pressed her face into her mat, her body trembling with sobs. The silence was unbearable. Without the kora, without his letters, even the walls felt hostile. For the first time she wondered if love could truly survive against such force. Days stretched like drought. Amadou did not return to the gate. Mariama did not receive notes in the market or the music shop. The absence was a wound she could not close. She imagined him at the ferry, rope in hand, sweat glistening on his skin, his eyes dark with worry. Did he still think of her? Did he write letters he had no place to hide? The thought gnawed at her until sleep became impossible. At the market, she glimpsed him once across the throng. Their eyes met. For a heartbeat, the noise around them dissolved. She wanted to run to him, to throw herself into his arms. Instead, she held her basket tighter, forcing herself to walk past, her lips pressed together. The restraint left her trembling, heat pulsing through her limbs like fever. Her body betrayed her at night. She dreamed of his hands on her waist, his breath brushing her cheek, the closeness they had never dared but always wanted. She would wake flushed, heart pounding, torn between longing and despair. The kora's absence loomed over her like a silence that could not be broken. Her mother noticed. One evening, as they shelled groundnuts by lamplight, she said softly, "You walk like a shadow, Mariama. Your eyes are dim. A girl should not wither so soon." Mariama swallowed, her throat dry. "They have taken everything, Mama. Even the music that held me." Her mother's gaze lingered on her face, full of pity and something else, a secret she seemed to hold back. That night, Mariama pressed her palms together and whispered into the dark, "If love can survive silence, let it live. If it cannot, let it die quickly, because this waiting is breaking me." It was her mother who finally broke the weight of silence. One afternoon, when the sun pressed heavy and the compound was quiet, she called Mariama into her room. From beneath her mat, she pulled a small tin box, dented and rusted at the corners. Inside lay faded cloth, a broken string of prayer beads, and a letter so old its ink had nearly vanished. "My mother loved a drummer," she said softly, her fingers brushing the fragile paper. He could make the night dance, make sorrow lift with rhythm. But she married a traitor. He gave her rice when the rains failed, cloth when the winds were harsh. She raised us well. Yet at night, when she thought no one listened, she hummed his rhythms under her breath. Mariama's chest ached. And you, Mama? Her mother's almond eyes flickered with memories. I married your father because he was steady like a boat that does not tip. But sometimes, Mariama, I wonder what it might have been to sail with the wind instead of against it. She touched her daughter's hand, her voice trembling with a rare softness. The world tells us to choose between music and bread. But maybe, just maybe, a clever woman can find both. Tears pricked Mariama's eyes. But how, Mama? They will not listen. They only see boats and nets. Her mother squeezed her hand. Ask for time. Time is the one gift even the stern cannot refuse. Not to escape but to prove. Use it to show them your song is not foolishness. Use it to make your love as useful as nets and boats. The words sank deep, a lifeline in the flood. For the first time since the storm, Mariama's heart steadied. She would not give up. She would fight with music, with service, with love. The kora was gone, but the rhythm remained inside her. The elders met in the mosque courtyard, voices low but firm. Mariama stood before them, her mother at her side. Her father's eyes were unreadable, his jaw set like stone. She bowed her head, but her voice when it came was clear, steady. Give me 40 days, she said. Let me serve the village with my hands. Let me prove that I can bring more than shame. Murmurs rippled. Some elders frowned, others leaned forward. Amadou, seated among them, raised his brows but said nothing. Finally one old man spoke. 40 days. Service to the community. If you show no worth, then we will bind you to steadiness, not to songs. Her father hesitated, then nodded. So be it. The decision spread quickly like smoke through dry thatch. For 40 days, Mariama would work alongside the midwife, grind millet for families and help repair the well. Her hands would serve the people, and in that service she would prove whether she was worthy of her choice. That evening, Amadou found her at the riverbank. The setting sun painted the water gold. His chest rose and fell quickly as he reached her, his dark eyes burning. 40 days, he whispered. I will wait. I will work harder. I will bring them proof. He reached for her hand, bold this time, fingers sliding against hers, calluses rough but steady. Their palms pressed together, heat coursing through her body. Mariama's breath hitched, her lips parting. For the first time, she let herself lean closer, close enough to feel his breath against her cheek. Her body trembled, her heart hammering. Yet they stopped just short, suspended in the ache of longing. The restraint was as intimate as touch itself. The river swirled quietly around them, carrying the promise of 40 long days. The days blurred into labor. Mariama rose at dawn, pounding millet until her arms ached, fetching water until her neck throbbed from the weight of the calabash. She worked with the midwife, grinding herbs, boiling neem leaves, and tending to fevers with cool cloths. The village watched her closely, weighing each act as though it might tip the scales of her future. Amadou labored too. He took extra shifts at the ferry, hauling goods until his shoulders burned. He repaired nets with precision, earning praise from fishermen who once dismissed him. Quietly he saved coin by coin, until a small pouch grew heavy with his determination. One evening, as Mariama carried buckets from the well, she found Amadou waiting at the path's edge. His chest was slick with sweat, his shirt damp, but his smile was warm. He stepped closer, his hand brushing hers as he relieved her of one heavy bucket. The brief touch ignited heat in her veins. You are stronger than all of them, he murmured, his voice husky. Mariama's lips trembled into a smile. And you are stubborn. They walked side by side, close enough that their shoulders brushed, each accidental contact sending sparks across her skin. She imagined him pressing her against the well's stone, kissing her until she forgot the world. The thought made her cheeks flush, her heart flutter wildly. But restraint was their armor. They carried it like the weight of water, heavy, essential, keeping them steady until the 40 days would pass. On the 40th day the courtyard filled again. Elders sat cross-legged, their expressions grave. Amadou was present, his boubou pressed, his sandals polished. Amadou arrived with 2 elders from the ferry guild and his workshop master from the city. They carried papers, testimonies, and even a polished stool he had built with his own hands. He spoke plainly. I may not have fleets of boats, but I have steady work. I have savings. I have skill that feeds me and will feed her. I have love that steadies like a keel and sings like a string. His words carried weight, not from grandeur but from truth. The elders nodded. Murmurs rippled. Mamadou rose slowly, his broad shoulders square. "I will not fight love that burns so clear," he said, his voice calm. "A boat given unwillingly is a boat that leaks. I step aside, not from weakness, but because gifts should be chosen as much as offered." His eyes met Mariama's briefly, not bitter but resigned. With a bow he turned away, his dignity intact. Her father's silence lingered longest. Finally he spoke. "A husband steadies a family. If you can do this, Amadou, then steady her with both hands. If you fail, you will not only lose her, but you will lose us." That night, the village gathered under lanterns. The kora was brought out, its strings mended, its body polished. The griot's apprentice played, the sound rising pure and alive. Mariama danced in the courtyard, her wrapper swirling, her laughter bright. Amadou joined her, his hand finding hers openly now, their fingers entwined. In the music, she felt his breath warm against her temple, his chest firm against hers as they swayed. The restraint that had held them for so long loosened, replaced by a closeness that was fierce, tender, alive. Around them, tradition and desire found a rhythm at last, steady and strong. The kora sang. The village watched. And Mariama knew, their love had survived the storm.